Hi, I'm Michael Crowley from the Business Enterprise Centre in Ipswich, and I'm here today with Greg Geoff from the Insurance Council of Australia at our disaster preparation seminar for local businesses. Greg, we need a bit of advice from the Insurance Council of Australia about the best sort of preparation a business can make when they're thinking about the disasters that can confront us.
Michael, I think the best advice I can give is that after this seminar, go and read your policy. I did when I first joined the Insurance Council of Australia, and either you get to read the policy, get your wife or your husband to read the policy and understand it.
That's so true. I remember I was shocked when it was my turn and I had to read a policy and realise it's quite a lot to take in.
It is a lot to take in, but there are links to our website that will assist, and I'll mention that in the seminar, that makes it more simple and understandable.
That's terrific. If anyone would like to see the links the Insurance Council of Australia provide, they're available at the end of this program. Greg, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. My pleasure.
Hi, it's Michael Crowley, and I'm back again with another guest. Today it's Inspector David Preston from the Ipswich District Police. David's here to talk to us also about preparation for businesses prior to disaster events. David, thanks for coming down.
My pleasure, thank you.
David, what would you, from your perspective, see as the key point a business should have in mind when they're doing their disaster preparations?
Michael, in 2011, one of the things that really stood out to us as a disaster management group was the lack of planning by a number of businesses. So it's extremely important that business not only plan how to deal with the disaster, but also make sure that their workers and their employees fully understand what that management plan is going to be as to what their business continuity is going to be about, where they're going to go, where they're going to work, and then make sure that that plan is then put into place. And if they can actually test it and do some things to make sure it works, it makes them a more resilient business, which will lead them in the right direction.
That's very good advice, and of course what you're saying is the plan's not much good if they don't communicate it. Yeah?
That's right, everyone needs to know and have input into that plan to make sure it's going to work.
Dave, thank you very much. I'm sure everyone will pick up on that today.
My pleasure, thank you.
Hi, it's Michael Crowley, and I'm back here now with Professor Alan Manning from the LMI group in Melbourne, who's come up to Springfield because originally he's a Brisbane boy. Isn't that right, Alan?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and he's a Lions fan, so he's very welcome up here in Springfield. And Alan's going to talk to us about disaster preparation for small business. Alan, thanks for joining us. What would be a few key suggestions that you would have for small businesses?
Well, look, I've been doing this for over 40 years, going out, looking after insurance claims after fires, floods, every disaster since Cyclone Althea in 1971. So,
Wow.
so from all that time, and then going to do my doctoral studies, I found that it's really important for small businesses or any business to have a business continuity plan. It really does reduce the amount of time that they're disrupted and gets them that chance to survive. And then behind that, you should have a good insurance program. Once you understand your risks and you speak to a good insurance broker, you get your insurance program to fit that, and it'll fund that recovery process. If you do that, you've got a much better chance of survival.
Vital information to have the resources behind you and the plan to support the plans you have.
Exactly. You need that financing.
Excellent, excellent, Alan. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for coming this morning. A few more people will probably come and join us in a minute or two. And thank you and welcome to our breakfast here this morning, a breakfast with a difference. Today is significant obviously from 2 points of view, and firstly a bit of an apology from me. I realise the colour I'm wearing here is blue, that is not my normal colour this time of the year. That's what the shirt is. So yes, so apologies to anyone else that is supporting the Blues tonight. Commiserations to you. Today is also significant from the point of view that we're partnering up, probably for the first time in a very long time, with the Ipswich Chamber of Commerce, Ipswich City Council, Quest Insurance Services in Springfield and also in Gatton, Queensland Government and also the Federal Government to bring you this morning's breakfast. We'd also particularly like to thank the Ipswich City Council and the Federal Government for the financial support to bring you this morning's breakfast and presentation and speakers as well. So there's a full action-packed event stuff we've got on here this morning for you. Of course, this morning's breakfast is entitled How Prepared is Your Business? As you know, we've certainly seen our fair share of tragic events in this area, in our region, over the last couple of years, whether they be floods, other circumstances, other tragedies, fires, whatever they may be. There's lots of things going on. And I suppose this morning's breakfast is designed to give you a bit of an insight, to make you better prepared, not to just to stress test your business, I suppose, in some particular way. So if the worst does happen, you've got a format that you know you can follow. I know some businesses were exceptionally well prepared after the floods in the past, and it can even be things like data management as well. That often elusive area that people often forget. The physical damage that occurs, what about the data? One of the most important aspects of a lot of people's businesses. So it's how to protect those as well. So I suppose this morning's going to go through some of those things and just give you a bit of an update on what you can do and how prepared your business can be. So basically, the format for this morning is that I'm going to be sitting down and handing over to our MC, Michael Crowley, for this morning from the BEC in Ipswich.
Also from Ipswich City Council today, we have Councillor David Morrison, who is going to kick off proceedings this morning. David, if you would please.
Thanks, Michael. And I've got the easy job this morning is to welcome everybody and also to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are having breakfast. The Jagera, Yugara and Yugarapul people are the traditional owners of the land, and we give them respect this morning. So welcome. I was thinking I don't have a business, but being prepared for business is obviously very logical. If you're going for a long trip, the first thing you do is check your oil and your water and the air pressure in your car and be prepared as possible. And I suppose entering into business is going on a long journey, and being prepared as possible is just very logical. So I look forward this morning to listening to the guest speakers, and welcome, and we hope you have a great time. Thank you.
Okay, so to get the morning rolling along, first of all, we're going to hear from the Deputy Chair of the Ipswich District Disaster Management Group. So if I could call on David Preston, please, to come up. Inspector Preston, if you would, from Ipswich District, please.
Okay, my name's David Preston. I'm an Inspector of Police based at the Ipswich District. I can be up at Umanta or down at Goodna or at Springfield, which are my three areas that I look after. But basically, just to give you an indication, Ipswich District goes from the back of Somerset Dam all the way down through Wivenhoe, the back of Rosewood, and we take in Cunningham's Gap, come around the border, and come back up in along the Logan Springfield boundary here, and around to Goodna, up into Corona Downs. So it's quite an extensive area. In saying that, for disaster management purposes, that covers three local shire councils. You've got Somerset, up the top, Ipswich City Council, and also down to the scenic rim down the bottom. The current state with disaster management is that the police have responsibility for managing all disaster management groups, the district disaster management groups. How it's set out is you have your local disaster management groups, which are your councils, such as Somerset, Ipswich and Scenic Rim, that manage their own disaster group, which we become part of. Then there's a step up, an overview from them, which is where I'm at, as the Deputy Chair of our District Disaster Management Group, and then we report directly to the state. So in the time of a disaster, if something goes wrong, give a fine example, like Somerset back in 2011, they had around about a metre of water through their major incident room up there, totally took it out of action. They told us, we actually made arrangements within about 12 hours. We had people down from the Northern Territory to come down and help them actually manage their new incident room. If there's assistance that's made for major pieces of equipment or some assistance from a Defence Force, those requests are escalated from the local disaster management group because it's something that they don't have the resources. They come to us, and then we push it up into a state disaster group for them to make an application to Defence Force to get something out for us. We can approve something like Defence Force in a matter of probably 10-15 minutes if it's needed for emergency situations or to make assistance. So that's the basically state of what happens in the times of a disaster. As a police officer, I actually step down once a disaster declaration is made as a police officer, and there's my boss, myself, and Jerry All over here, who's my executive officer. We step down as police. We commence a major incident room. It's generally up at Diamante, or we have a backup room down here at Springfield, of which we go into and just look after disaster management. We don't do anything to do with policing. We'll leave that to some other inspectors that also work with me. Part of our disaster management group process, and this is where it comes important for all of you people, is what we look at in relation to being prepared. We look at the planning of the local disaster management groups to make sure that they're putting things into place so that businesses and the community in general are prepared in the event of any sort of disaster, so everyone's a little bit more resilient. And we found during 2011, when the floods hit here, because it hadn't happened for so long, people weren't as well prepared, and we learned a lot from that in relation to evacuation centres. It's no good having an evacuation centre that's in a location that's going to go 3 foot underwater. It just doesn't work. So getting people getting access to evacuation centres, and also with the spread of our emergency services. So it's all about being prepared and planning. So what we do is every 12 months, Jerry and myself, we go around to the councils, we have a look at what their planning processes are to make sure it's all done in accordance with the legislation, and then they actually develop support from there, as part of this is today, to make sure that you're more resilient within your own business or within your community. The big thing with the planning is you just don't plan. It's about making sure that your staff, your employees fully understand how your planning process is going to unfold during a disaster. Everyone thinks it's not going to happen to us. I can tell you now, when the fires came through here a bit over 12 months ago, last year sometime, we were about half an hour away from starting to evacuate most of Springfield. So there was parts of Redbank Plains that had already self-evacuated. The school, St Francis over here, had already evacuated, but we were in discussions with the minister at that stage to declare a disaster and actually force people evacuations, which would have been a major change. It's something you've never seen, and that would have been probably most of the new Springfield around Orion area, probably even across towards Brookwater, because all we needed was the wind to change the wrong direction. If you listen to what the fire brigade were telling us, and we could have very easily had another Canberra situation with it just would have skipped over top of house to house to house, and we wouldn't have stopped it. So it was very fortunate weather was on our side at that time, and at that stage, when we did a review of the whole thing, we realised how close we were coming to that, and we were prepared. But whether everyone else would have been another thing, because I'm sure everyone was thinking, you're in a new estate, there's not a lot of trees around here, it's not going to happen to us. I'm sorry, it does happen. When it happens, I hope it never does. But we all need to make sure that everyone understands what their planning's about, their employees understand what the business continuity is, where do we go to work, who do we need to contact, who do we need to check on. So it's important that every person within your business has an understanding or a contact person to get an understanding of what happens during a time of disaster. If you're prepared, if you have a business continuity plan in place, it's going to make it a lot easier and a lot smoother transition for your business, particularly if your business is taken out of action for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a month, however long it needs to be. So you need to ensure, because without that business continuity planning and the resilience, any business will struggle, I'm sure. So I think I'll leave it at that for now, Michael. So if there's any questions later on around, please feel free to ask Jerry and myself about what we do as a disaster group. But the disaster management group, sorry, just one thing I will have. The disaster management group as such, we have not only the councils on board, we have all state government departments. We have SEQ Water, we have the power supply, water supply, you name it, the Defence Force. There's about 40 odd people on our membership from various agencies and support businesses. So they're all there as consultants and to give us advice as well. So it's not just the police thing, it's a whole of community that's represented on that group. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them later on. Okay, thank you.
Moving right along now, I would like to actually introduce Greg Wharf from the Insurance Council of Australia. I was talking to Greg earlier, and he's got quite a few good suggestions for you as part of your disaster preparation for your business. So Greg, if you'd like to join us, please.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, my name's Greg Warburton. I'm from the Insurance Council of Australia. We're not an insurance company. I'm not here to sell insurance. I don't sell insurance. But we represent about 98% of the insurance companies throughout Australia. I come from a police background and I worked with Qantas Security for 20 years, and I've only worked with the insurance industry for 2 years, and I, like a lot of people, thought the insurance companies were just here to rip us off. I've been to a lot of catastrophes since I've been with the Insurance Council. Up Bundaberg, the floods at Bundaberg, the fires at the Blue Mountains, the fires over in Perth, and what really struck me was how on the front foot the insurance companies actually do in these major catastrophes. Of course, that's after the event we're here to talk about, before the event. I did go to a number of meetings in the Blue Mountains, and I went to one very sad one where it was an uninsured event. I wasn't there to do much, but I was there to see if I could assist in any way I could, and it was very, very emotional, very, very sad to see people that were actually uninsured. Can I just read you a few facts that the Insurance Council of Australia sourced by Quantum Market Research on behalf of the Insurance Council last year? And these are facts about underinsurance. 8 in 10 homeowners and renters are underinsured for their home and contents. A third of householders risk underinsurance by not updating their contents policies to cover new possessions. 1 in 10 householders deliberately understate the cost of replacing their home and contents to lower their insurance premiums. Many householders risk underinsurance or insufficient cover by selecting their policies based on price rather than the coverage they really need. 83% of household owners say they could not resume their same standard of living if their property was damaged or destroyed because they did not have enough insurance. About 2/3 of renters do not have contents insurance compared with only 7% of homeowners. Well, the insurance industry pays out about $1.6 million a day in claims. It's not much to do with this, but anyway. Men are more likely to feel non-insurance is acceptable. 16% believe it is okay to go without building insurance in an area without natural disasters compared with 9% of women, and 18% think going without contents insurance won't affect them at all compared with 8% of women. And up to a quarter of households say they are not sure what is covered by their home and contents insurance policies. The Insurance Council of Australia late last year launched a website, and it's called Understanding Insurance. It's a really basic tool for anyone that's a little bit confused, as I was, about insurance. There's a website, it's www.understandinsurance.com.au, and I've been told that you'll be able to place this on the website so you can access it. I have some pamphlets at the back, not enough to cover everybody, but if you want to come and see me after the event, I can give that to you. The one thing I think that you should be able to take away from this meeting, as I did when I first joined the Insurance Council of Australia and went to one of these major catastrophes, is go home and read your policy. Get your wife to read it, get your husband to read it, and if you've got a broker, get him to try and explain it to you. Thank you.
All right, Greg, thank you very much. Now, next to give you, we're going to have Mark Warburton come up from Acacia Law, and this was actually very interesting listening to him last time he was talking about intellectual property and some of the risks involved. So from a legal perspective, here's some of the disasters that you can have. Mark.
Thank you, Michael. What you will find is that we've given you a checklist, 2 checklists in there. I'll come back to that. We've given you a pen and a little keyring torch. Now, these are a little gimmicky, but the pen is to remind you to do your disaster plan, to go out and write it down. So when you see the pen, remember, write your disaster plan, and the torch is for you to be able to find it when the disaster hits. Okay. Now, when you get when you look at the checklists that I've given you, there are actually 2. The front one is for intellectual property, and the back one is just a general legal disaster preparation checklist. I'm not going to go through that today. Lawyers are always accused of being too convolved and involved in giving you details, so I'm not going to actually go through that, but hopefully it will be helpful to you, and if you've got any questions about it, feel free to ask me. The other thing I'm not going to do is give you any notes, which you'll probably be very grateful for. What I would say to you though is that if there is a disaster and your business is wiped out, basically a flood comes through, a fire comes through, an earthquake, a sinkhole, whatever it happens to be, and it all disappears, often the only thing left over is your insurance claim, if you've got insurance, or your intellectual property, if you have intellectual property. So intellectual property survives disasters, and that can be very important. If you have a trademark, such as what happened to the Marmite company in New Zealand, where in the Christchurch earthquake, they had a massive disaster in their plant. It was shut down for over a year. They had to relocate. They couldn't provide any of their customers with product. And it did hurt them, but the thing is that their clients, their customers were well aware of the brand Marmite, and they actually had a lot of brand loyalty. So my recommendation to you all is to try and get your brand out there, get everybody to know what your brand is, and as part of that, protect it by way of trademark. The other thing that you should be doing is, and should be aware of, is that in a disaster, the statistics show that most of the time when a disaster happens is the highest rate of employee attrition occurs. So you actually lose quite a lot of your workforce after a disaster, and that in itself is a disaster. And there are many reasons for that. I mean, the staff could be personal circumstances. It could be because they just don't have a job anymore. They have to wait until the new plant opens or the new business opens. It could also be because the whole situation has changed, and that they're now sort of thinking about green pastures, that they want to go and do their own thing. And if that occurs, how are you as a business going to cope with that? So you need some sort of planning associated with it, and hopefully those checklists that I've given you will give you some ideas around that. In addition, you need to protect the intellectual property that you've got. The last thing you want to do is have your staff walk out on you, go and open up down the road in competition with you, and take your branding and or your copyright and your trade secrets with them. That is a disaster in and of itself. So really and truly, those are the things that you've got to think about now, before the disaster happens. In addition to that, you have the situation where if you have to relocate your business, you will find often that you will be treading on the toes of somebody else in another part of the town. Previously they weren't strong competitors of yours, but now that you've moved, you are. And if they have a trademark and you don't, and you are actually infringing on their trademark, that's when they'll take action against you, and that can sink your business, because you've got all of these other problems that you've had to face, and now in addition to that you're now facing legal action. So it's very important prior to the disaster to sort out your intellectual property, get your branding protection by way of trademark, get your technology protected by way of patent. And it doesn't have to be, there are two patent systems in Australia. There's the petty patent system, which is now called the innovation patent system, and there's also the standard patent system. Now the standard patent system protects inventions, and the innovation patent system protects innovations, and innovations are a lower standard than inventions. So even if you have an incremental change to a technology process or even a technology product, you can still protect it. You can also protect your intellectual property by the way it looks, such as things like these light fittings here would be a good example, where you actually protect it by way of the way it looks, by way of a design registration in Australia. And as I say, at the end of the day, in a disaster, you need to have as much of an asset as possible so that you can either sell it up or you can continue going. And if you do continue going, that's when you need your intellectual property to be able to protect your turf, but also to be able to actually have an asset at the end of the day that you can rely on.
Just to keep things moving along then, of course, vital to the survival of any small business is your bank. And your money, your bank, and the support your bank gives you. And to talk about that, we're very pleased to welcome the branch manager of the Springfield branch for the Bendigo Bank, Aoife Jensch, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much to the Springfield Chamber of Commerce and the Ipswich City Council for the opportunity to speak this morning. This is such an important topic for our local businesses, in particular from a financial perspective. We can all recount the terrible stories of loss and stress from the recent floods in our region. But natural disasters are not the only type that can strike. There is also illness and accident, which can also be a disaster for your business. With this in mind, what can we do to keep financial loss and stress that comes with it to a minimum? Well, insurance is the obvious one, as we heard from Greg just before. But we need to make sure that we're getting the right advice. We need to make sure that we're talking to the right people who understand our business, a trusted advisor, if you like. When looking for insurance, we need to seek out that person, somebody who cares about your business and somebody who thinks of the things that perhaps you might not. Also, having a relationship with your banker is key, I think. Understand that banks are here to help us. Like we're not in the business of taking your home and taking your business. We want to get you back on your feet and help you to do that. So there is a financial hardship policy that you can talk to your bank about. So they can set up like a temporary arrangement whereby we can put things on hold while you recover. So please make sure that the first call you make after obviously the police and those really important people who are here in the room today, but the next phone call be your banker. Tell them what's going on and set up that process so that at least that stress is put on hold for 3-4 months. At the Bendigo Bank, we put that at the heart of what we do. We support our community in very practical ways. Before I was the manager here at Springfield, I was a manager out at Rosewood, and during my time there, we organised with the help of the Ipswich City Council 2 sandbagging machines for Marburg and for Rosewood SES, which was vital for the last flood that we just had. So, Bendigo Bank is happy to partner with people like the Ipswich City Council and the SES and the local people around here. I'm extremely worried. What the policeman said before, I had no idea that our houses were under threat by 30 minutes when that fire came through here last year. I'm a resident here. I live just over the road, and I had a small baby at the time, and I'm shocked to know that was how close we were. So I would love to think that we as Bendigo Bank here in Springfield could partner with the likes of your organisations and whatever financial help we can give or even volunteers. We'd love to do that. Also, we just recently supported the PCYC down at Robel Domain for Fatality Free Friday just the other week. So we're heavily involved in the community, and please come and see me if you've got an idea and you need some financial backing. Thank you so much for listening. As your local bank manager, please pop in and see me and my new team anytime. Thank you.
Professor Alan Manning from the LMI Group, if you'd join us to talk about your work, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm what's called a claims preparer. So most people never even heard of us. We're the best kept secret in insurance. So we actually help businesses after they've had a major catastrophe get back into business, prepare their insurance claim, and get the insurer to pay their just entitlement. So I've been doing this for 43 years. So my first disaster was Cyclone Althea in Townsville back in 1970-71. So I've been doing this for now 43 years. In that time, the United Nations say that natural catastrophes around the world have gone up 60%. And when I graphed the claims and the amount that the insurance industry has paid out over that 40 years, since Cyclone Larry in 2005 or 2006, the disasters have significantly increased. And for the first time in my career in 2011, we had 8 disasters going on in Australia. Before that, we'd only have had 2 at one time. So to have 8 was a massive change for the industry, and something we really struggled to deal with. Before that, the big one was 74 when Brisbane got flooded, and then that was at the beginning of the year, and then you had Cyclone Tracy at the end of the year. Because I've been doing this for so long, I was really got quite frustrated that I was going out helping people, but so many businesses were failing, even though they thought they had full insurance. And one thing I'd pick up that Inspector Weston said was that the most common thing said to me as a claims person is, I never thought it'd happen to me. Most people don't. So I went off and did a doctoral study to see what the insurance industry could do better to help people. And part of that was looking at the level of insurance, and I support everything that the ICA said. So many people do not have insurance. When the bushfires happened in Victoria, and picking up one of the other speakers talking about life insurance, I think the bank, 173 people perished, only 30 people had any form of life insurance, even with their credit card. So that's just staggering. And we're trying to help some young kids who lost their parents in the bushfire. We're off on a holiday and we can't get any money from the grant. So it all went to to people who lost property, not to kids who lost their parents. Quite sad. So I went off and did this research to see what we could do better. And what I found, I came across a study by a lady called Deborah Pretty. She was an insurance broker in London who studied 300 companies that had been blown up by the IRA during the 1980s. And she tracked their share price. And the share price is the future cash flow of the business. And she found that if a business had a fully documented and exercised business continuity plan, their share price was back where it was, in fact, higher than where it was after 8 to 10 weeks. If you had part of your business protected, say the IT, typically IT because of Y2K, etc., that sort of thing was moving on then towards that, took a year. If they didn't have it, if the business survived, and a lot of them were taken over within 2 years, the business took 2 years to get their share price back. So that was sort of mirroring my study, because my passion is not the big business, and they can look after themselves. I really worry about SME Australia, because we're the biggest employer. We are the backbone of the economy. So, and it's just heartbreaking to me to going out and you see the business fail, the people lose their home, etc., etc. So that really sort of resonated with me. And then in the 2000s, when I was doing my doctorate, I found that Harvard University and the Wall Street Journal looked at why the company's share price went higher after a disaster when they had this business continuity plan. And it's coming back to a word that you used, Inspector, resilience, brand resilience. And what it shows is that if a company can survive like a Marmite, etc., and I'm actually helping the Marmite with their claim, if their brand is so good and they've got a fully documented plan and they can get up and running again, then people are prepared to invest in it because it's a well-run, good, protected business. So people are prepared to pay a premium for it. So when I did my research, I went off and looked at it. And so I looked at a number of companies that have been affected by fires, floods, storms, etc., and half the companies that had a major loss had failed within 2 years. That was just staggering to me. Of those that survived, so of the half that survived, 25% sacked or sued their insurance broker, and only 37% were happy enough to stay with their insurance company, their insurance broker, and survive. And I thought, that's just terrible it's no good for the economy, it's no good for insurers, it's no good for the business owners. So I then started looking at it. So I came up with a very simple solution because most people understand their risks. It's just having a formula or a process to go down. So we rather than use checklists and things, we have an online system called Continuity Coach, where a business person, we coach them through what they need to do, and then you can go to any cafe, anywhere you can get onto the internet, and you can download your plan. We'd expect you to have a hard copy as well. And there's a special code. If you put in a code called Quest, who's sponsoring me today, you'll actually get that business continuity plan at half price. One of the things I was really heartened to hear from you, Ethan, is your name? Ethan, lovely name. So many times after disasters, banks some of the big banks will come in and actually freeze your account, or they'll come in and charge you a higher interest rate because they're saying you're more risky. That terrifies me. It's really kicking people when they're down. So one of the things to do with a business continuity plan is to go in when you got it, go in and talk to your bank and discuss with them how they would treat you. And it's really wonderful that you're there to support people. The level of underinsurance, I just want to finish on that. When the bushfires happened in Victoria, there's two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about data. I'll go to the data first. So many times during floods in Christchurch and the earthquakes there, so many people had their disaster and then they cordoned off the whole CBD, so people couldn't get into they might be undamaged, but they couldn't get their records. Without their business records, they were absolutely stuffed. So people risked their lives, they were climbing the fence at night, the police would have been horrified at what people were doing. Even my own staff were helping elderly people, so I actually had to put a stop to it because one of my guys got injured trying to do that sort of stupid stuff. But he was just trying to help the customer. But you've got to have your data backed up and off-site and protected. That's really, really very important. And at least 30% of the businesses lost their data as a result of that one catastrophe. But in the bushfires in Victoria, and I'm not trying to take away from the floods, that they are horrific. Sorry, I could talk all day about this sort of stuff. My relatives, or ancestors, actually founded Marburg, and when I talked to as a young kid, I was talking about the families. They would go out into the bush and see how high the flood was on all the trees, and they'd build a house like a Queenslander up on the stilts. What do? We build them now at ground level, and where the only disaster floods is where we put things back exactly where they were. After Cyclone Tracy, we fixed up the storm ratings of buildings. With bushfires now in Victoria, you've got to have all this special glazing, and so your house doesn't burn now. But floods, we put them back exactly the same, and we expect them to be different. We just got to get that flood thing sorted. But going back to the level of underinsurance, there was 10,000 homes destroyed in the Victorian bushfires. So I won't give money to people, because I think it's just you should insure yourself. Insurance is relatively inexpensive, and in 43 years of doing the claims, only 4 people have ever said to me, "Look," talked about the premium. Everyone wants a Rolls-Royce cover, the Rolls-Royce service. Because what's at stake? It's their livelihood of their business, their family. It's their sole source of income for mum and dad often. My own business, it's my children as well. It's the mortgage over my home. It's my superannuation. It's my biggest, if not sole, source of investment. And then it's what I do that's why I get out of bed in the morning. It's because I like helping people and doing what I'm doing. And if I go to, say, a town like Marysville, they had 3 conference centres which were the draw card for the town. All 3 were destroyed by fire. All 3 were underinsured, had no business interruption insurance. And so 220 people lost their jobs as a result of that. And I had a man in my office, 58 years of age, crying his eyes out, saying, "What am I going to do? I can't stand my missus. I can't stand Oprah. I can't watch television all day." He was just thinking, but he hadn't thought about that when he had not discussed insurance with his broker. So that level of and that destroyed the town, because they were the draw card for everyone else in the village. So please make sure you get the right insurance. And that means talking to an insurance broker. You talked about reading the policies. If you buy your home and contents through those supermarkets, the flood has to make a hole in your building. So if it just oozes up, it's not covered. So do make sure you get the right insurance to protect your business and your home. Thank you.
Okay, moving on then now, if we can. Someone who almost had a disaster getting here, had a bit of a struggle to get here this morning. I'm going to say she slept in. She's going to say it was the traffic. Annabelle Johnson, the Acting Senior Advisor from Community Recovery from the Department of Communities. Annabelle, if you'd please come up and join us. Did you get a coffee? Should I make you a coffee, Annabelle?
And some eggs, very nice. Thanks, Michael. Yes, I did nearly have a disaster this morning, and I actually nearly have a disaster every morning, because having 3 children and having to get them to school early and them not wanting to get out of bed. It was a very tough morning, so I apologise I was a bit late. As Michael said, my name's Annabelle Johnston. I'm the Acting Senior Advisor for Community Recovery for the Department of Communities, Child Safety and Disability Services, and my area is the southwest Queensland. So the bottom quarter of Queensland is the area that our region takes in. Okay, so you might think human social recovery or community recovery, what does that have to do with the Department of Communities, Child Safety and Disability Services? Well, apart from our day-to-day work of community and disability services and child safety and child protection, the department also has a lead agency role in human and social recovery following disaster events. So that means we get in and we help the people get better, and we help the community networks and the social networks to re-establish and to recover, to try and help people get back to some sort of normality, or trying to get back to some sort of new normal following a disaster event. So we do that by working with a whole lot of other agencies like Red Cross and Lifeline and Council, Salvation Army, St Vincent de Paul, and our role is to coordinate those services, to find out first of all what a community needs, for example counselling, mental health services, clothing, food, shelter, that sort of thing. So we find out what the community needs, and we get in there and we engage services and put those services in the community to help them get back on their feet. So that's one part of our role. Next part of our role is the department, through a joint federal-state government funding arrangements called the Natural Disaster Relief and Recovery Arrangements, or NDRRA. We can administer some financial assistance to people who have just been affected by a disaster. So with that, there are a number of grants. There's an immediate grant which we can help people out with, non-means tested, and it's a one-off payment that is meant to help people who have basically lost everything and need immediate food, clothing, shelter, and medication. So it's a small grant, and that's available up to 7 days following a disaster event. We also have other grants which are means tested and have some other eligibility criteria, such as no insurance and damaged property, for the replacement and repair of essential goods in your home, your bedding, your fridge, that sort of thing. And we also have grants around small grants to help repair homes. Unfortunately, they'll never replace insurance, so they are a fallback position, the grants that we have. So it's for those people who may own their own home, may not have insurance, or may have let their insurance lapse. Small grants, the structural grant is our largest one, and that's about $14,000 for a family. So it really won't rebuild the home. It'll just maybe put some stumps or put a bit of a roof back on your home. So it will never replace insurance. And then we have one more grant that is around re-establishing essential services and getting your power and everything reconnected and fixed up in your home. So as I mentioned earlier, we do this through the partnerships of our agencies, our Red Cross, Lifeline, and particularly council. We work very closely with all our councils in our region, and we come along to these sorts of meetings, and it is a partnership. Recovery is all about a partnership. It's all about being able to get on the phone in a disaster time and know the person you're speaking to. So we do a lot of work outside disasters. For example, now we have regular meetings, we have regular planning days, we have regular exercises, so that I can pick up the phone and say, "Oh, hi Nick, we need this, can you help?" Or, we can help you with this, that sort of thing. I can pick up and talk to Dave and say, "Dave, we need to do this." I can pick up the phone to Eleanor Carter at Red Cross and say, "Eleanor, we need some help." So it's all about building relationships and maintaining those outside of disaster time, so that we can get in there and provide the best services to those who really need it. And that's what our department's there, to help those who are really vulnerable and really need the assistance following a disaster event. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Annabelle. All right, I wanted to talk to you a little bit, if I may, about this beautiful green pack you've got. But first, I suppose I should explain why I'm talking to you. My name's Michael Crowley. I'm the manager of the Business Enterprise Centre in Ipswich. So, in that role, my job is normally to provide low-cost advice to small businesses. So we're funded by the federal government still, and we provide low-cost advice to small businesses, to people who are either starting up a business, have a business and want to grow, or maybe have reached a point for whatever reason that they want to exit. In that role, we also provide support through the Lockyer Valley to businesses that are affected by the disasters and the floods that occurred. One of the things, I suppose, that I've noticed as I go along is that disasters come in many shapes and sizes. So you might think, well, he's hopeless, what would he know about disasters? I used to own and operate a business in Bali. And I owned one and ran another. It was a fantastic business. I did it for years, especially around about 2002. Bit of a disaster. Not related to me, nothing to do with my political views or anything else, but you get caught up in disasters and that's it, you lose the lot. So, all our staff, everybody lost that. So after I'd been through that, I worked there for many more years and worked with the community to rebuild the small businesses in Bali that were all part of the supply chain we had. And that was fantastic fun and a great lesson. I thought, I better bring my kids back to Australia. So I came back to Australia, settled in beautiful Brisbane, and I got my own business running, doing clothing and workwear, and I got it all up and running just in time for the global financial crisis. At which point my 3 biggest customers went broke. I had a great business. 3 biggest customers went broke. It wiped me out financially. They all went under, owing me lots of money. Nothing wrong with my business, plenty wrong with theirs. Suddenly I had the bank knocking on the door because I didn't have a nice friendly bank. Right, like IFA, so you've got to stick with friendly ones. I had an unfriendly one who came knocking on the door saying, "Give us back the house." That's a disaster. I assure you, if you're a single parent with 3 kids and someone's trying to take your house away from you, that's a disaster. disasters come in many shapes and sizes. So I got over that. I told them I was a lovely guy, and they said, oh, okay, then you can stay. So I rebuilt my business, expanded it, did really well, and in 2011 opened my second store and my new factory in Brisbane, and 3 days later watched the whole lot go underwater. Lost the whole lot. Got a very good lesson in being underinsured. So I suggest you talk to Alan. And lost everything. Same bank came back and said, you keep doing this. It's not my fault. It's a disaster. It's not my fault. It still cost me everything. Yes, I lost everything. With a lot of help from a lot of people, in 12 months I rebuilt the business, got back to record sales levels and sold it and walked away. Every cent I made went to pay off all the debts that I'd incurred. So, yes, I'm broke. And yes, from your perspective, as a business advisor, that might make me a crap business advisor. True, but I do know a lot about disasters. So, one of the things I found out was not only do they come in many different shapes and sizes, whether it's flood, fire, it can be loss of customers, a loss of supplier. Disaster preparation is about managing risk. And if you have the attitude that it won't happen to me, well, I've had that attitude 3 times and I got it wrong 3 times. So please listen. It's worth having a crack at managing the risk, at being prepared, and that's what today's about. Ipswich City Council's gone to a lot of trouble to put this groovy little kit together, and I just want to show you a few things in it. You don't have to unpack it if you don't want to, but I really want you to take it home. And I know you think, it'll never happen to me. Well, remember that silly man from Ipswich? Happened 3 times in 3 different ways, 2 different countries. What can I say? I'm buying a lottery ticket. Managing risk has been defined, or dealing with disasters has been defined using a model called PPRR. And all the various emergency planning people in America and Australia and all that, they work around that acronym of 4 letters. They had to keep it short so that I could remember it. PPRR stands for Prevention, Preparedness, Response and Recovery. So go home, look at your business and think about it in terms of, have I taken steps to prevent a disaster? Am I prepared if the disaster occurs? What response do I want? And how will I recover long term? And recovery, as we've heard, is long term. In fact, many of the studies, longitudinal studies, are saying it can take 10 years for you to get over it. It really can. You can get back on your feet, but to actually get back to where you wanted to be in life can take you 10 years. It takes longer and it hurts more if you're not ready. So I know, like everybody else, you don't want to do your homework. I understand that. I didn't either, and look what happened to me. So I thought there's got to be people smarter than me, and I went onto the internet and I tried to nick all the good ideas I could. So I'm not smart enough to do this. I am smart enough to plagiarise it from clever people. And I put together for you a checklist. And you're all going, oh. If you hate it, really, I will do it with you. As part of my role as a business advisor, if you want to give me a phone call, I will come and visit you. I will go through the checklist with you. And in these are some questions that you need to be asking yourself and you need to be able to answer. If you don't want to ask all these questions, if you don't want to answer them, that's okay. Till something goes wrong. So, firstly in here, I've focused on flood. By the way, you'll get all the links, all the web links that you need. So although I'm talking about a flood here, all of this is available for free. You don't have to pay for it. Go on the internet, download it. If you want to prepare yourself for a cyclone, you can go and download that for free. If you want to prepare yourself for a fire, you can go and download that for free. Pick your disaster, any disaster, go and get the information for free and act on it before it acts on you. So in this case, I've got a checklist about getting ready for a flood. So it's only 4 questions. It's not going to kill you. So have a look at it. That might help you there. Then you can go on, and I've got your emergency plan. Now your emergency plan would be 1 A4 page back and front. So very simple. that you can just fill in phone numbers, because one of the things I found in Bali, I'm hopeless without these, all right? Yes, we had the phone numbers of the people we had to ring. Yes, I'm incredibly well organised. No, I couldn't find my glasses. Believe it or not, when a bomb goes off, it's very hard to find your glasses. And so I couldn't read the numbers on my phone. So I couldn't give them out to other people to help. One simple printed sheet actually was a life and death issue. Write it out, laminate it, and stick it next to the first aid kit in your office. You are legally obliged to have a first aid kit, so you can't sit there and tell me you haven't got one. So have a look at that. Then there's a checklist for how you can approach recovery, and pretty much just a couple of questions that I've nicked from all the clever people, whether it's government websites, whether it's the Red Cross. One of the best ones I actually have nicked is from the CPA website, and that's in here, because they ask some really clever questions about just how financially prepared you are and how you would deal with it. Also in here I've got a couple of questions about and suggestions on how to get out. If you lose everything, all you've got's the name, or the shell of the business, maybe you want to get out. If you want to get out, here's 6 different ways that you can move on from your business as profitably as possible after a disaster. That's written here for you. Take the time to read it. Now, the other thing that's in there is that fighting back from a disaster, a catastrophe, a loss, when it's everything gets people down. So there's a phone number there for Lifeline. There's a phone number there for Beyond Blue. If you don't like them, I carry in my wallet Salvation Army crisis line. Get one of those phone numbers, give it to people. It really knocks you around. If it's your life's work and it just got washed down the Brisbane River, it really knocks you around. The other groovy resource that they've gone to all the trouble of putting in there, it's a really groovy credit card. Because, if you can get out of the packet, it's a USB. In the corner here, that pops out. Plug that into your computer, and the information that you've got in hard copy in those green folders is also available in an electronic copy here to make your life easier. No excuses when you leave this breakfast. No excuses. We've done it all for you. You just got to fill it in. Now, there's also links there so that you can see that I tell you the truth. I really did steal every good idea that I've come up with so far. The links are there. You can go and look at these places, download the bit that's up to date, relevant to you. Do a little bit each day, but for your own sakes, make sure you do it. Lots of resources. Have a look. Talk to the people who are here. This is a great opportunity. If it doesn't work for you this morning because you've got to rush off and open the shop, get to the work site, whatever. I'm going to ask Senior Sergeant Geoff Noller to come up, because he wants to tell you what a great guy I am, and also to make a few suggestions from the local community. Geoff, please.
Thanks, Mike. I just wanted to outline how we do things locally. So a lot of you are local or have local businesses. So I just wanted to let you know what situation we'd be in a disaster. So we have about 40 staff at Springfield Police Station, which covers from the Camira-Springfield boundary right through to the Redbank Plains and the Cunningham Highway. So we have over 50,000 people in the area at the moment. 40 staff, and the building's only about half full. That building includes a major incident room at the back where we can bring in lots of resources if we need to. We also have 24-hour emergency power. We have business continuity plans. We have 100,000 litres of water under the ground. We have a petrol station next door to fill up the generator. We have great local councillors that we involved with. We have a great Chamber of Commerce and other community engagements which we do well. We have great leadership in the district. So there's Dave and other people involved in the disaster. Jerry. We also, like our district officers, just got a national award. He was the officer that led the recovery in the Brisbane Valley after the most recent floods. So I've also got experience in fires, cyclones and floods. So I'm sure if there was a disaster, we'd be on the right track and we'd know what to do. In relation to what Mike was just talking to about the effects disasters have, we also recently have a government set up called Support Link, where we can very easily, over the computer in about 2 minutes, refer people, and we do that through domestic violence incidents and things like that. So there's a whole lot of agencies on board, about 80 agencies that are involved in that we can refer different people to. And the only other point I wanted to really make was in relation to staff attrition. That point's been made today too. We will lose staff if there's a disaster, we know that, but the government policy is that if you can't get to your place of work, you have to get to a place of work. And being that so many police live in this area and other government workers, I'm sure we'd be in a very good position to look after our local community. So that's all I wanted to say, and I'll be here for a couple of minutes if someone wants to ask questions. Thanks.
Geoff, thank you very much.
Look, I hope you did get some benefit out of this morning. Certainly, for myself, to hear that we're only half an hour away from a major potential catastrophe and the change of wind, but I certainly feel in great hands with Geoff Noller and his team out here that if the worst did occur, that we are certainly in good hands. The other thing as well, 8 out of 10 people, 80% of people are underinsured. That's just amazing. So, that's probably just on a residential basis. You can imagine on a commercial basis. How many people of your policies do you think you're underinsured with? So it's absolutely huge. Mark Warburton gave us a very useful protection, a checklist that protection is not just the physical, it's also data and intellectual property as well, and gave some interesting analysis of what would happen if you had to relocate. So again, something else to think about. We also heard from Professor Alan Manning about, he's a claims repairer. The right insurance is essential, and I should point out that Alan was brought to you this morning from Quest Insurance Services. Grant Reid, if you wouldn't mind just standing up for a very quick second. Grant, you can sit down. That's it. So Grant has a major part of his business in the Lockyer Valley, and I know he had a lot to do with the Grantham disaster and everything else out there, and I understand he was one of the very first few people on the ground out there. And I know he's a meticulous level for detail and everything else, making sure people get the right level of insurance. So, of course, it was sponsored partly, of course, by Quest this morning. So if you do need your commercial needs looked after, I do suggest you have a chat to Grant. The other thing as well, it was good to hear from Annabelle Johnson about community recovery, what benefits are available. So again, just take out little snippets out of today's program and implement them in your business. It's always too late when a disaster strikes, no matter what type of disaster it actually is. You can always think that the benefit of hindsight. Well, here's your opportunity to do something about it.
Hi, I'm Tess. I work at the University of Southern Queensland. This morning's breakfast was really great to give that information to businesses about how they can best protect their business when a disaster strikes. The event was really well rounded and gave great perspectives from not only police, government agencies, community groups, but also the insurance providers and also the bank that can help you out to the best of their ability and to get you back on your feet.
Hi, I'm Neil Coupland from First National Springfield. I found this morning very, very informative. I think one of the main things that I found out of this is although you think you're prepared, I mean the first thing you need to do is to go back and double check to make sure that you are as prepared as you think you are. As a lot of the people said that you don't think it's going to happen to you, but there's many stories out there where it has happened to a lot of people. So I think that one of the main things is to go back and recheck to make sure that we are as covered as we think we're covered. So I think it was a very informative morning altogether.
Good morning, my name's Grant Reid, Director of Quest Insurance Services, owner and operator of a business in the Lockyer Valley and Springfield. This morning's presentation was very informative, and with all the businesses that were involved in local disasters, they definitely see the value in business continuity and insurance. I found this very informative, and it was great to see all the local businesses come together and share this very informative breakfast. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm here with our hosts for this morning who've organised a fantastic seminar. Ralph Breeden, from the President of the Springfield Chamber of Commerce and Principal of Clarity Financial Advisors.
Yes.
Ralph, thank you very much. Great turnout this morning.
It was good numbers. Happy with the numbers this morning.
Springfield Chamber of Commerce always get a good turnout.
Going from strength to strength at the moment. Very happy with the numbers.
Ralph, I enjoyed your summing up that you did after the seminar this morning. I was wondering if you could share a few of those points you picked up on
Absolutely.
with us.
Absolutely. Well, I suppose the first thing is that back, Ipswich has certainly seen its fair share of disasters, and it's unfortunately a big chunk of the people in the room, 80% I believe, are underinsured, whether it be on a personal basis or a commercial basis. 80% don't have the right insurance. Is the first thing that struck me. The other thing that struck me was Springfield was obviously was lucky enough to escape the flood concerns, but when we had a few bushfires of late as well, we're only half an hour away from being evacuated.
That was scary.
That was, and it was just that brought chills down everyone's spine. I watched everyone's reaction to see how they would be towards that, and everyone was like immediately, well, disasters come in many different formats, not always just floods. They can be anything. So business is commercial, and also residential is disasters can strike in any way, shape or form.
They really do. I was pleased to hear we have such a strong disaster management plan through the police and our
absolutely
that Dave was talking about.
Yeah.
That was very reassuring.
Yeah.
And he covers an enormous area, doesn't he?
Oh, it's a huge area. I mean, if you consider that, I think Geoff Noller and his team cover an area, a very large square kilometre area. It's absolutely huge. But it's just faith knowing that they've got a disaster management recovery facility there. They've got all the requirements there to staff it. It was just interesting to hear the way the police, how they would coordinate an event. If they can't get to Yamanto, they would come here, and even the police. Just hearing about there's a lot of police that live in the local area. If they can't get there to where they're assigned station for whatever reason, they go to the nearest port of call, which would be Springfield here.
Yeah, that was good. It's I often feel though that the professionals like the police, they train for this sort of thing. They have the resources for it. For small businesses who are so many of your members,
yes.
What were some of the sort of takeaway points, do you think, that for those of us who aren't perhaps as organised as the police?
Absolutely. Well, look, we all tend to have insurance, and a lot of people are no experts when it comes to residential. So commercial brings in a whole other aspect of it. There's different insurances for glass coverage, for different. I'm no expert, but listening to some of the comments in there, getting the right insurance is paramount. So the first thing we would suggest to people is pick up that insurance document, have a look at it. Does it cover what it needs to do? And hearing something about business interruption insurance. Again, I'm no expert, but if you couldn't get to your place of work and all your data stored there, how are you going to continue to operate? It affects different businesses in different ways, so it's essential. We have my own business. I mean, we have off-site data storage facilities. So no matter where we are, we can pull up a laptop or a device or something and access a lot of the data that we have. How many businesses have that in place?
True,
so
yeah.
I suppose this morning is to be seen as a bit of a reality check, to go through their own checklist to make sure they're prepared should the fire, flood, or whatever circumstances should occur, just to make sure they're adequately protected.
Well, I think it was a tremendous show that we had today, and I really thank the Springfield Chamber of Commerce for putting it on. And you're right, it's a good reminder to everyone. I hope they've taken heed and gone on to their business today.
Absolutely. Thanks
for your time.
Thanks very much, Rob. Cheers. Thank you.